Hello, and welcome to Gardening with the Gardeners, a podcast where we discuss our favorite plants, gardens, landscape design, and all things horticulture, with just a touch of our crazy homestead lifestyle thrown in.
I'm one of your hosts, Matthew Boone Gardner, a horticulturalist, landscape designer, and fourth-generation owner-operator of Boone Gardner Landscape.
And I'm Hope Gardner, Matt's wife, a horticulturalist with our local county extension office, as well as a landscape designer with a family business. And together, we make up Gardening with the Gardeners.
All right, finally, we're back.
We are.
Episode...
And we're back in many different ways.
Back on the podcast, back in town.
Back from family vacation.
So this is it's episode 22.
22, yes.
And we just got back from a big family vacation to Ireland.
So when your 18 and 20-year-old kids say that this was an epic family vacation, I'm going to take that as a good sign.
We've been talking about going there for years. You went back when you were in college.
College, uh-huh.
That's one of the few places I did not go on my European and Britain tour of gardens. But you always wanted to go back, and I've always wanted to go, and we wanted to take the kids to do something fun, so we went.
We did. This was a big vacation for us. And so, yeah, of all the places that we could have gone, I'm so glad that we went to Ireland.
It was lovely. So we thought we would do something different with this podcast, and it's probably going to end up being at least 2, if not 3, maybe more, I don't know, episodes. We saw such cool things and would like to share and to talk about them and discuss the gardens and the various sites and scenes and history of things. And
we were gone for, I think it was a total of 12 days. 2 of those were actually, travel days. But we hit the ground running. And I think you had said when we turned the rent-a-car in that we traveled over 2,000 miles, I think.
Something like that.
I mean, it was a crazy amount of miles. We did not go through a tour company. We sat down and kind of talked with the family on what everybody wanted to see, and then spent a lot of hours planning our stops, and we rented Airbnbs along the way. And so we just kind of did this ourselves.
Yeah, that's kind of the way we like to travel. I mean, tours are always nice, but we kind of like to do a lot of the research ourselves and kind of look into things. And we did, 5 different Airbnbs, if not 6. We did Dublin twice.
We did 5.
5. And the cool thing about that and renting the car is you get out and you see the countryside. So you're, driving around and really get to see things.
Thank good you drive around. I will give you mad credit for that.
At least I didn't have a broken wrist this time, like when we were in England several years ago.
Makes it a little easier to drive.
Exactly.
On the wrong side of the road.
So yeah, when we were gone, we had wonderful a friend of yours, Griffin, take care of that outside of the house.
Yeah, Griffin took care of the farm animals and watered all my dahlias. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Griffin. She did a great job.
Yeah, and then we had Madison, who stays in the house and takes care of the inside dogs, and she helps put, I think, the ducks and chickens away at night as well when it gets after dark. So they kind of tag team. I know it does take a lot to kind of manage our property when we're gone, and we're really, really fortunate that we've got some great young ladies that take care of that for us. So
and Mikey and the landscape crews did a good job. We were gone, took care of things, and so things.
Yeah, business still has to keep going.
Exactly. So we're back, and it's been not too much of a rude awakening. The weather's been nice around here. It's a little warm. It's now August, and but not too bad. Pretty
it's August weather. That's what we should have.
Yeah. So been lucky to get some rain. It was interesting because when we were in Ireland, they were actually under a drought, and so of course, everybody talks about the Emerald Isle and how green it is, but you were kind of shocked since the last time you were there because it was
brown,
pretty brown. Yeah, kind of like Kentucky in August, and now we're green. So
and when we were there, everybody was saying they had not had rain, and of course, this is in that Dublin, Kilkenny, Galway, in that kind of lower half of the country. They had not had rain in 6 weeks.
Yeah. It was pretty significant.
They're literally having wildfires and just burning up. And, of course, they're not used to that.
And we saw the wildfires. That was really
wild. Two different ones.
Yeah, two different areas. And then even when we were, and then of course when we were our flight out, we flew from Louisville into Detroit, connected in Detroit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where we saw all the smoke from the Canadian
that's
wildfires.
right.
It was
I forgot about that.
It was so thick and so horrific. It was quite something. Just
that was kind of eye-opening. I had
yeah.
not expected to see that on our way out of the country.
Yeah, we'll get the haze here in Kentucky sometimes, and maybe a little bit of smog, but nothing like that. It was
so dense
you
that
couldn't see across the tarmac.
Yeah,
no, it was crazy.
It was crazy. So yeah, I think there's a lot of areas. I think France and Spain, and so there's a lot of areas that are really dealing with wildfires right now, and that's so scary. I hate to lose so many of our beautiful wooded areas, and I guess in the big scheme of things, this has happened many, many times, year after year after year, where areas will burn, and then it kind of rejuvenates a lot of the woodland areas, kind of like what happens, I guess, in our prairies, where the fires go through. And it's really interesting how Mother Nature does take care of it. But it was scary to see both the smoke from Canada and then the fires in Ireland at the same time.
So, like I said, I think we're going to try something different.
Mm-hmm.
And almost do our bit at Rick Steves' tour, travel log type thing.
Well, and because we did see so many gardens and
we love gardens, we love architecture, we love art, we love history,
yep.
we love nature, and so we thought, why not? It's kind of what our podcast is about. Anyways, we say gardening with the gardeners, but obviously we've talked about other things already. And so we're going to talk about some of the highlights of our trip, if that's okay.
Of course it is.
And kind of cover some areas. And, we flew into Dublin and hit it strong.
And hit the ground running.
And what's the most famous thing in Dublin, or at least one of them you have to do right away?
Guinness.
Yes, or at least I wanted to.
That was one of the things that you said you really wanted to do. So we hit the House of Guinness right off the bat.
The House of Guinness. And if many of y'all, if there's a new show on, fairly new now, but on Netflix called The House of Guinness, it's pretty good. It's like everything on Netflix. It takes a lot of embellishments.
Yeah, it's a little loose.
It's a little loose with with the history, but it's pretty well done. It's graphic like everything else on Netflix nowadays too. But
and I think they did a really good job expressing the importance of that family to just the creation of Dublin and what they did for Ireland as a whole.
That's huge, and that's kind of where we wanted to start our podcast. So you're exactly right. Few families have had that much influence on, greater influence on the city of Dublin than the Guinness family. For more than 250 years, their name has been, synonymous with brewing, philanthropy, architecture, and Irish history. The story began in 1759 when Arthur Guinness signed one of the most famous leases in business history. And we went on the tour at the Guinness Storehouse, and they have a copy of the lease. It's in the floor, wasn't it? Was that in the floor, or what was in the?
Yes.
Yeah, the copy.
As soon as you walk in, right in the middle.
They're very proud of this, but it's a 9,000-year-old lease that he signed, and it was on the St. James Gate Brewery in Dublin. And the lease was costing just £45 per year, which I'm sure was a lot more back then, obviously, but still reasonable. But £45 per year gave Arthur control of what would become one of the world's most recognizable breweries. And while it initially produced like several styles of ale, it was obviously that awesome, rich, dark porter, later perfected into the Guinness Stout, which is what I like, the nice creamy pint, that transformed the company into what it is today and this massive international success.
Yes.
Throughout the late 18th and 19th centuries, Guinness expanded rapidly as advances in brewing, transportation, and international trade allowed the stout to be exported around the world. And that was also cool kind of seeing that in that series too, and they talked about bringing it to the America. And
exactly how they did that and how they kind of had to sneak it in at first.
It was such a big, it's quite something. And by the 1800s, St. James Gate became one of the largest breweries on earth, employing thousands of Dubliners and helping fuel the city's economy. Obviously, because of this, the family, just like, the Anheuser-Busch family in America, even more so, this family accumulated just ridiculous amounts of wealth. It's mind-boggling. And they became renowned for their commitment to improving lives of Dubliners and people throughout Ireland.
They really did an amazing kind of a benefit to the Dublin people, improving, sanitation and housing, and then, just giving back to them through their schools. They really didn't look at the brewery just as, their business, but as one that really helped, Dublin and then all of Ireland.
Yeah. I mean, their family fund housed projects for hospitals, libraries, parks, schools, churches, and public institutions all throughout Ireland. It transformed many areas in all of Dublin during the Victorian era and established the family as obviously the respected leaders that they were. Probably more history we need to go into, but I think it's kind of interesting. Several members of the family were elevated to the British and Irish peerage, including titles of Baron Ardalon, Earl of Iveagh, and Lord Moyne. Among the most influential was Edward Cecil Guinness, later became the first Earl of Iveagh, who donated millions of pounds to charitable causes. Just massive amounts of money, especially for back then. And his gifts included medical research, education, public health, and preservation of historic buildings and public spaces. So that's kind of cool.
It's just amazing when you look at what one family did for that area.
And you can still, obviously, you still see all that now with not just the Guinness Storehouse. And it is massive. When we didn't even see half of it. This is not even where most of their production is anymore. And it's just a massive facility. Goes on for blocks and blocks. And then they helped restore and reopen one of the most beloved parks in all of Dublin, St. Stephen's Green. Even to this day, it's still beautiful.
Well, I think that park opened in the 1880s.
1880s. The generosity of that Lord Ardenlaw, I'm probably saying it wrong, but Arthur Edward Guinness. Mm-hmm. And then the Ivy Gardens.
Magnificent, yes, Ivy Gardens.
Often called Dublin's secret gardens, were also preserved through the family's patronage and remain one of their hidden treasures today.
I think everybody that goes to Dublin really needs to go see that garden. And it's one that you don't really hear a lot about.
No. So like I said, we talked about the Guinness Storehouse tour. It's, it's commercial. It's a little, I hate the word used, cheesy, but it's a commercial, big, fancy tour, but it's cool. I mean, it's really interesting, really fun. And we did that. And
I will have to say, whoever did their PR for that, or the development of that, did a phenomenal job.
They know how to market.
Yes, they do.
And brand their products and everything else. It's really quite something. And then it all kind of culminates at the top of what they call the gravity bar, which is perfect because when you pour a Guinness, the gravity is what causes it to settle, obviously. And the gravity bar is I think 6 stories or more above Dublin. Maybe taller than that, but it's a great view of Dublin. You kind of have this 360-degree view of everywhere. It's really pretty.
Well, and it's really fun because when you're on that tour, they actually teach you the proper way to pour a Guinness. So we did, all 4 of us got, I guess, quote-unquote certified and know the proper way to pour a Guinness stout.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that was really fun.
It was fun. So in wrapping up and just kind of, because again, I think it's interesting the kind of the whole tie-in of beer and agriculture, which is in horticulture. It's just interesting because, what makes that Guinness stout so different from any other dark beer, it all begins with the fields of Ireland. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they're cool climate, plentiful rainfall normally.
Yes.
I think our son looked it up and it was over 250. I think it was
257 or 237 days
a year rain in Ireland. That is amazing.
Because we only get 100 and...
We should have looked this up before the podcast.
Yeah,
it was the ratio
130
it was so dramatic. I was like, wow. But long summer days and rich soils makes it one of the best places to grow this malting barley. This high quality barley that is the foundation of Guinness and has been for centuries. Barley first goes through a process called malting, where it's soaked and allowed to sprout. And then it's dried. This develops the natural sugars needed for brewing and creates those subtle flavors of fresh bread, biscuits, and toasted grain.
Well, this is a horticulture podcast. Of course you would say flowers.
Yes. Gives Guinness its signature toast is the roasted barley. Unlike malted barley, roasted barley is heated to very high temperatures. It's kind of like, Starbucks roasting their coffee beans. And that's what gives Guinness its deep black color. But really, it's actually a deep red. It's so deep red that it looks black, but it's not really black. But it gives those familiar notes of coffee, dark chocolate, toasted bread. Makes it really nice and easy to drink. you did have part of yours. Or actually, you tried I can't remember what you had.
I had a Guinness.
Yeah. That's not your favorite, though, because it's kind of coffee and chocolatey.
It does have that roasted flavor. So, I will admit that I like the Guinness, but for me personally, I think the Smithwick's, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, the Smithwick's Red was a little bit closer to my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Another important ingredient is their water, the Dublin water. The natural mineral content has long been suited for brewing dark beers. Very similar to kind of the water and things we have here.
Because of the limestone.
Exactly. There's a lot of parallels, and we'll talk about that throughout this whole podcast. The parallels between Kentucky and Ireland. It's kind of interesting. It does not rely on big hop flavors like these modern IPAs that all the hipsters drink, like my friends and stuff. It's much more subtle. I'm going, again, wade more into I'm trying to keep it simple, but I think it's just interesting. And then final thing really was the yeast. And that was cool because you were a sourdough bread baker.
Yes.
And you were impressed that they've been holding on to their yeast mother for I guess all 250 or something. I mean, they literally have it under a safe and had it under lock and key in a safe vaulted room, and obviously they have labs that keep adding to it and growing it, but they've had that same yeast forever.
And one of the reasons that they have had that is because I think that part of the yeast, because you can usually identify the yeast and the different strains of it, but it is such a unique yeast in itself.
Well, and especially pardon me, but back then, I mean, they wouldn't have really they knew the science, but they didn't know the science. And so it might be hard to recreate that.
There's no way they could recreate it.
So once they found this yeast that created this amazing, helped give the beer this kind of subtle fruity notes and kind of smooth fermentation character, they're like, oh, we got to keep this. Because it is like...
There's no way to recreate it.
Yeah.
So they know the value of that. So...
And then finally, of course, no discussion is complete without talking about that final. Kind of again just ran through that process of brewing the Guinness, but then finally they, instead of carbonate with carbon dioxide like most of our beers do, they use nitrogen, and so that creates smaller bubbles and gives Guinness that silky mouthfeel. That's really what I love. It makes it so smooth and delicious, and that's what also causes. It's basically they take 90 seconds to by the time a bartender is going to pour a Guinness. So you first pour it to a certain point in the glass, then you let that settle, and then you top it off again, and then let that sit, and then you serve it. So it takes some time to get the perfect pint of Guinness.
Yes, and I think that's so unique to Guinness, and it makes it very, very kind of a one-of-a-kind beer.
Yeah. So we think we're proud of ourselves for our 127 years, and they have nearly 300 years of brewing tradition. So that's a family business, man.
That is.
We're like babies compared to that. We did that. I wanted to briefly touch on that, but then we had wonderful dinner in Dublin that night. The next day, we drove south and went to the Kilkenny area, and this is where
on the way to Kilkenny, we stopped at Powerscourt House, or the
Powerscourt
Estate.
Yeah, the estate.
And
it's
in Wicklow County, and I think that it is considered one of Ireland's greatest country estates.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's one of really Europe's finest designed landscapes. It was phenomenal.
And I have been to a lot of gardens throughout Ireland, Great Britain, and you also Ireland in the past, and
it was phenomenal.
This was right there. I mean, we were blown away.
So if you like gardens and you plan on traveling to Ireland anytime soon, be sure. It's like maybe 45 minutes south of Dublin. It's called Powerscourt Castle or Estate.
Yes.
It's in County Wicklow.
Enniskerry, the village of Enniskerry in County Wicklow. Mm-hmm. So we'll do a brief history of Powerscourt. Mm-hmm. The site began... Well, let me back up a second, too. So to prepare for myself for Ireland, I read a book that you started reading years ago. I don't know if you ever quite finished it, but you got pretty far in it. But it's a tome. But Rutherford, Edward Rutherford's Princes of Ireland.
Yes.
And the Dublin Saga. And it's the first book in this thing. And it's incredible. But it starts like all of Edward Rutherford's books. It's historic fiction. But he talks about there is a lot of good history in there. So it's a fiction story that he makes up, but it's always woven with true history. And so I've always, lately I've kind of gotten to where I'll either read them or listen to them on
audiobooks
and before a trip. And it's a great primer to get you ready for one of these things because it goes into all the history of everything. But that's like, so because all these places had such amazing history. I mean, it's just, everything's so old and so rich.
Layered.
Yes. Just like Powerscourt. So it began as a Norman castle in the 13th century. It was built by the Lepore family or Power family after the Norman invasion of Ireland. It had a very commanding position that allowed it to control like the routes through the whole area, through the Wicklow Mountains and into Dublin, which was a critical point. So over the century, ownership passed to the various influential, eventually the Wingfield family, who became the Viscounts of Powerscourt. In the 1730s, this medieval castle was transformed into a magnificent Palladian mansion by the German-born architect Richard Castles, also known as Richard Castle. The original castle was incorporated into the new house, and this created a 68-room country estate that reflected the wealth and influence of the Powerscourt family.
68-room, I would say, definitely.
It definitely shows off.
Some wealth.
That's a flex, right?
That is.
So, of course, like all things during the Victorian era, all these grand things, the estate entered into its golden age, and Mervyn Wingfield, the 7th Viscount of Powerscourt, he inherited the property in the mid-1800s, devoted much of his life to creating one of the world's great gardens. And that's where you and I get really excited.
Yes.
So he traveled all through, France and Italy and Austria and Germany. He returned inspired by these famous European gardens such as Versailles and Schönbrunn Palace. Just like you and I come home and we're like, oh, we want to do everything.
Well, it's so hard not to when you see, great examples of.
Yeah. But of course, this guy has the money to actually do it.
Okay. So I want to add, 3 more hydrangeas and
No, he's moving earth and doing it.
Yes. So unfortunately, a devastating fire destroyed much of the house in 1974, and it left kind of an empty shell for about 2 decades. So then they started to very painstakingly restore the home, and it did reopen in 1996. So it now does allow visitors to both experience the house and the amazing gardens. We chose not to go through the house.
Yeah, we just peeked at it from the outside a little bit, but
because we ended up spending so much time in the gardens, which I know is hard to believe.
We had more time scheduled. You had more things scheduled for that day, but we ended up spending probably 2 or 3 times as long as we thought we were going to at this garden because we were so blown away.
Just in the gardens, yeah.
Insane. So, the house is an impressive example of Palladian architecture, but the true masterpiece, like we're saying, is this 47 acres of gardens and design landscape.
Unbelievable.
It's considered one of Ireland's greatest gardens because it's nice. It combines formal European garden design with Victorian horticultural ambition, these plants hunters that were going out and collecting things, all the architectural features, and the natural beauty of the Wicklow Mountains. You and I were blown away by that. Like the borrowed views.
Yes. So you just look out to these amazing just vistas.
Well, and the Wicklow Mountains are out there, and there's this thing which is kind of funny because you've actually been to Brazil and Rio with Sugarloaf Mountain, but they have this cool, smaller, but although maybe not, it's probably about the pretty close same size, I guess. Great Sugarloaf Mountain, which is kind of the centerpiece of this backdrop. Yeah. And so they very critically, this was a strong technique of 18th and 19th century landscape principles of the borrowed scenery or the borrowed view. A lot of your great landscape architects would borrow that vista. So it's like, instead of just being in your own little property, actually use that and say, okay, I'm going to use that and utilize it and direct the view towards that borrowed view. So you frame like the Wicklow Mountains or that great Sugarloaf Mountain in the backdrop.
Well, I know, we have, I think, 12 acres here. But we're very fortunate that there's a couple areas of our farm that we look over to the neighboring farm. And I always try to make sure that view is wide open because I just love looking out onto those pastures. And it's very similar to what they do is, when you see, it allows that property line to kind of be blurred, where even though I don't own that pasture, I just borrow the view of that.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And it's critical. And it really makes a big difference and makes your garden or yard seem even more larger, impressive, and more dramatic.
So that is a neat trick that they developed a long time ago.
So the first formal garden plans were developed in the 1730s and the 1740s. At the same time that the medieval castle was transformed into the like we were talking about, the Grand Palladian mansion that it is now. The original concept was influenced by European aristocratic estates, particularly, like we said before, the gardens of France and Italy. A lot of formal designs. When we first walked out, the back terrace is amazing. It's a very Italianate, very formal design, which we'll get to that in a second.
So you've got those really strong geometric organization, those very formal avenues to look down, the symmetry between the house and the landscape, and those really, really long vistas. So they just add just layers and layers of just amazing gardens, and the terraces that kind of connect the architecture of the house with the nature.
Yeah, amazing terraces, amazing symmetry and axes going all through there, just creating those massive vistas and lines. Everything lines up perfectly. I love that kind of symmetry. I love formal design.
Well, so when you look out from the house, you go out onto this parterre, and then there's the steps down, and then there's another layer, and then steps down, and it all goes down to your view goes down to this pond with this amazing statue in the center with a fountain, and then you keep looking out from there, and it goes on to those Wicklow Mountains. So you really have just so much for your eyes to absorb when you're looking out from the house. Very, very formal, very, very elegant. It's just gorgeous.
The master designer of Powerscourt was a gentleman named Daniel Robertson, and he was really kind of the most important figure, I guess you'd say, in the creation of the modern Powerscourt gardens.
Well, the nice thing, he was Irish, so he was an Irish architect,
local architect,
an Irish landscape designer. So he's the one that really began to redesign the estate in the 1840s.
And just like we talked about before, he was really influenced by the great Italian Renaissance gardens. Particularly the terraced landscapes of Tuscany, Sicily, like we just talked about, kind of his goal, not just create a decorative garden, but to create a series of dramatic outdoor rooms that unfolded gradually as visitors moved through the estate.
So he designed, his design philosophy really combined that Italian Renaissance terrace, like I just spoke about, classical sculptures, which you see throughout the garden.
Awesome sculpture.
That water feature with the pond. And that's not just the only water feature. There were several through the property, but that main one right down in that formal area.
Triton Lake.
The formal plantings. And then you do go into the woodland walks and then those carefully framed views. So he was really famous for creating that overall structure of an Italian garden that included those magnificent terraces descending from the house towards that Triton Lake.
A funny story that survives about Robertson and his work at Powerscourt, maybe a little bit of myth, who knows whether it's entirely true or not. Supposedly, he was suffering from gout, which was very common back then, especially I think it was called the rich man's disease or whatever. Usually if you ate and drank too much rich food. He supposedly directed, much of the construction while being pushed around the estate in a wheelbarrow. Sounds like something Crane would do.
Yes, exactly.
Often with a bottle of sherry nearby to ease his discomfort.
Sounds like a perfect Irishman.
Yes. So we'll kind of break down each section a little bit. Let's first discuss those Italian garden and terraces. And this is really the centerpiece of Powerscourt. Like any good estate of those eras, you come right off the back of the house and it just unfolds into this massive, grand, formal display.
So, like I just mentioned, you come out of the house onto these terraces, and then, the steps down, and they lead into that Triton Lake, which has that huge fountain in the center. And then you just look out onto those Sugarloaf Mountains. So the terraces were originally constructed in about 1843 to 1867. There was an enormous amount of labor and stonework that went into creating those.
More than 100 workers.
Yes, so more than 100 workers were involved in construction. They created the retaining walls, the staircase, the balustrades, and then all of those terraces that transformed that really steep hillside into this monumental garden.
And anytime I see these old gardens, it just blows my mind how they moved the soil before hydraulic machines. I mean, they didn't have
1843
excavators and things. Yeah, this is all done by hand and with horse, and yeah, it's
well, that's
something
why it
else.
took over 100 workers, because
Yeah.
you're doing that with shovels and horses, like you said, and wagons. So
But we can't focus on that central axis so much. Again, I love my formal design, but the greatest achievement of this thing was that you line up the Powerscourt house to the terraces, to the fountains, to the Triton Lake, all the way down to the Sugar Mountain Loaf. It's just wonderful. The next is that Triton Lake and garden sculpture.
that was really, really neat.
So at the bottom, as you go down towards the bottom of the Italian terrace, is this really, really natural looking pond.
So Triton was actually the son of Poseidon in Greek mythology.
Yes.
So he's in the lake.
In Roman, it'd be Neptune. So yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
So it was really neat to see how they created that and put that Greek mythology into these amazing sculptures that are right there at the edge of the water.
Well, and you come down and the pond. Obviously, the sculpture is kind of the masterpiece in this, but then this more subtle, natural pond had lily pads, had duckweed. We saw the
swans.
Oh my gosh, awesome swans! We saw swans everywhere in a lot of these different gardens. And then what you loved when we were walking around the path, well, all the kids did too, especially Lily. So they had these ducks, and then they had baby ducks that just recently hatched, because we
Yes.
know we've had that on our farm. And the lily pads were so strong and sturdy. The little baby ducks were running across the lily pads almost like they were walking on water.
Yeah, the parent ducks would be swimming, and then the babies would just be running on the lily pads across them.
It was so funny. And what we loved was when we came down, kind of tucked in the hillside, almost like a ha-ha wall, but not really, because it's even bigger. But it was just hidden. And this is what all these great gardens do: is you have these hidden gems that you would never know is there as you're looking out to the vista of the lake. But tucked in back behind it, towards the hillside of the terrace, was this little grotto, and the water
Yes.
where the drainage came through, and it's a really neat little area where they had stones built up, and then all. The cool thing about Ireland is so fertile. I mean, anywhere we have this in Kentucky and obviously other landscapes, but plants really grow and take root in little crevices and walls, and just you have natural green walls where all these plants are growing. And the
I
grotto
have
is
so
cool.
many pictures of little ferns
I know.
and plants growing in what would be a stone wall.
Yeah, because they just
And
love
they just
it.
pop out. And
Exactly.
it's really, really cool.
So yeah, their use of sculpture, we talked about that, really reflects the Victorian fascination with classical Greece and Rome. I mean, statues, urns, and architectural fragments are everywhere, punctuating the landscape. Then we kind of came down. We first went, well, we'll come back to the walled gardens, because we first went to the Japanese
Right.
garden on the left, and we were just, again, we love every garden, but we were wowed. I mean, it was just, this was so unique. So
The
unique.
amazing thing about this garden is that, you see the maps and you know it's over there. But the way they had the planting, you did not really see it.
It was very hidden.
It was very well hidden. And then you start walking down these steep and small
and narrow, yeah. Pathways.
rock, rock steps, and then it just opens up into this amazing Japanese garden.
Yeah, it was really, really beautiful. And I keep saying really, but it's
Well, because it really was. But I mean, it was started, I think, being developed about 1908 by the 8th Viscount.
and Viscountess, don't forget her.
And Viscountess, yes, I'm sure she had a lot to say about it.
I'm sure she did.
But it really reflects that Victorian and Edwardian fascination with those Japanese gardens.
Which is really neat, because we always think of kind of like Japanese gardens, like obviously not being new, but new to maybe America or whatever. And they are, but they, like you said, the Victorian and Edwardian times, they were into this.
They definitely were.
These richer people were traveling to Japan and seeing these things. They wanted to bring them back.
But it really does reflect that emphasis in that harmony between humans and nature. And so it's those controlled views. So when you walk down, you got glimpses of parts of the garden, but you didn't see the whole Japanese garden.
Yes.
Which was really, really neat.
The best designers are really good. They control your view, and it unfolds on how they want you to see it. And so it literally unfolds slowly as you walk through it.
And there were so many, like we said, little grottos and little waterfalls down the rocks as we're descending those steps and those hillsides.
It actually it increased. So if you remember, it was like a little runnel, almost like a Turkish or Islamic runnel at the very top, but it was informal. And then that would come down into more of a larger creek, and you had little stone bridges crossing over that. And then it went down into this, I don't even know how you explain this, rock structure that was like you had to go down these little bitty, one person could only go through at a time, tight stairs, all created from stone, into like almost a man-made grotto and arch that came back and had these massive ferns, and then like a natural water wall, like something you'd see, but like done naturally, where there's just water cascading over mosses and ferns and all these wonderful aquatic plants. It was really stunning. And I mean, my goodness, we were there, and it was probably the warmest day of the time we were in Ireland, maybe 76, 77, which in the sun it got a little warm. You walk into this area, what do you think?
It was so comfortable.
It was probably 10 degrees cooler at least.
Oh, at least.
At least, maybe 12 or more. I mean, it was really much cooler down that little area.
But it was really neat with the curved paths. Then there was all these Japanese bridges over these little waterways, and they had lots of lanterns. And in the water areas, there would be little islands with trees planted. So it was just really well done. I wish that we could show people from the podcast pictures, because
we can. We have the new website.
Oh, that's right, we do. I forgot about the new website.
They also can get online and see something. Just look up some of these places. That would be easy too. So, we don't want to go on and on, but we could, but we.
We could, and I'm trying to remember, because we saw some really, really cool plants.
Well, we came back up through.
Garden.
So after that, we came back around, and then there's like they have basically an arboretum. I mean, it's like I don't think they necessarily call it that, but it's a plant collection from all these amazing things they've collected. Just a spectacular specimen. The grounds contain a lot of really cool trees. One I always love seeing over there is they had the monkey puzzle tree.
That's one of your favorites.
Yeah, Arboreal araucana, which is related to the Norfolk Island pine, our little, what's not little over there, but for us it's a house plant, But and just incredible old yews, and I mean, again, we could go all day, but finally, and I guess I hate to say it was our favorite, because really there was really no favorite of the garden, because they were all.
It was
equal.
really hard to say.
That walled garden was truly spectacular, though. I love that walled garden.
So the first section of the walled garden was all of the herbaceous perennials. And of course, I think I've got at least 30 pictures of different dahlias.
It was one of the best borders I've seen.
Yes.
If not ever.
The collection of herbaceous perennials was just absolutely spectacular.
And just immaculately maintained. It was perfect.
So when we walked through that, then we got closer to the house. And I have to say, this was probably the first glimpse of me being blown away by the hydrangeas.
Yeah, if you think we have hydrangeas, go to Ireland, and it's not even the same. It's not even the same plant. Like, they're macrophylla types. They're big mop head varieties, like the ones that we sometimes struggle with our heat and whatever. Oh my goodness, they grow.
They go from deep purple to raspberry pink, then down to the lighter colors.
To any color, anything in between.
Any of those pinks, purples.
But they're huge. I mean, they're mammoth.
Let's see. I would say some of those were 7 feet tall, full of blooms.
No, I was 10 or 12. Some of them. 10. I mean,
well, I'm 5 feet, so I'm looking up. But
well, I know, but that's why I should be looking bigger. But some were huge. Maybe not at that place, but other places we saw them, they were huge.
Oh, yeah, other places. But around that walled garden, they were just massive. And I tried to get a picture of each variety. And so when we walked through the entrance to that garden and went to the left, if I took 30 pictures of 30 different hydrangea varieties, and then I had to stop because I looked to the right of the walkway, and there were probably that many more on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
It was just loaded. And I was not expecting that.
No, not at all.
It was really spectacular.
So obviously we enjoyed Powerscourt Castle.
Yes.
We can't say enough things about it. On the way out, they even have a cool greenhouse that's attached to it. And they have, on the way out, they even have their own garden center.
That was a pretty spectacular garden center.
Yeah. It was a really nice garden center. Very well done. Obviously we couldn't take anything with us. And
yeah, that's when I want one of the licenses that allows me to bring stuff international, because there was so many plants I wanted to bring home.
And then they had their own distillery on site too.
Yeah,
and
you gave them credit; they were a very good.
Yeah, I got some of their Irish whiskey, and it was really
single barrel,
single malt, and it was really really, really good. So
Yeah. Okay, so I know that we've gone pretty deep into that.
Probably too much.
Well, and I guess really our next stop was going to be that Kilkenny Castle, but should we stop and do that one on another episode? Because
No, let's go ahead and do it, because if we don't do it now, we won't.
Okay.
We're never going to get.
it will never get the whole podcast, the whole travels done. So after we got back on the road from Powerscourt Castle, we went into Kilkenny, and then the next morning we got up and we went to Kilkenny Castle, and that was just going to be a really quick stop. We didn't think a whole lot about it. It was just another castle to go to when you're in Ireland. And I have to say, we got there really early. In fact, we got there before it opened, so we had a little bit of time to walk around. The grounds were not nearly planted as elaborate as the day before. So Powerscourt really set our standards pretty high. Not to say that Kilkenny wasn't nice.
Well, this was different.
But
this
it was
more of a
very
working,
different.
Yeah, it's very different. Very different. This has got really neat history. It stands above the River Nore in the medieval city of Kilkenny. Kilkenny Castle it's one of Ireland's most important historic estates. Its story is nearly 800 years old of Irish history.
Only 800
only
years.
800 years. From, again, Norman conquest and powerful Anglo-Irish families to Victorian restoration and modern public preservation. So when we first got there, the gentleman who said, okay, you're early, but I'll help you in a little bit. He's like, go watch this film. And we're like, okay. And, of course, we like history, so we had no problem. And even our kids are good about going along and seeing that stuff, too. But it was really well done, and it made you appreciate this. It's really interesting, the history of this castle.
Yes, it is. So the Normans arrived in Ireland during the 12th century. Mm-hmm. And then after that Norman invasion, Richard de Clare, who's also known as Strongbow.
Strongbow is a big figure in Irish history.
He established kind of that wooden fortification on that site around 1172.
Yeah, 1172. So this is kind of up high, and it had some nice views and kind of a good strategic locations.
Very good strategic.
So back then, they were just building like wooden forts, basically.
Yes. So
it overlooked that River Nore.
Mm-hmm. So then the stone castle was later constructed by William Marshall, who was the fourth Earl of Pembroke. So that started around 1207. Mm-hmm. And he was one of the most powerful nobles in that medieval Europe. And he was responsible for transforming the site into that formidable Norman fortress.
Yeah, he really made that what it is today. The original castle featured 4 corner towers connected by curtain walls, 3 of which survive in modified form today. And then in 1391, the castle was purchased by the Butler family. And it's interesting because we'll come back to the Butler family again when we go talk about Smithwick.
They're threaded throughout all of...
Kind of like the Guinness family. So
yes.
You had a couple of these very powerful families. But they're one of Ireland's most influential aristocratic families. The Butlers later became the Earls and Dukes of Ormond, made the Kilkenny Castle their main, principal residence for more than 500 years. That's pretty cool.
A long family history.
Yeah. Their influence extended throughout Ireland. They played major roles in politics, military affairs, and cultural life.
So during that 17th century, that castle became the center of all power of the Irish Confederate Wars. So when Kilkenny served as the capital of the Confederate Ireland, which was 1642 to 1649, mm-hmm. the castle later endured political upheaval, changing fortunes and the periods of decline. So by the 19th century, the Butlers undertook a major transformation of that medieval fortress and brought it into the more fashionable Victorian country estate.
Yes, and that's when they brought in the architect William Vitruvius Morrison. And
that's a name.
Later, his son, William George Morrison. And they redesigned much of the castle between the 1820s and 1860s. And that's where they added a lot of their Gothic revival elements, grand interiors, and elegant appearances that you see when you go through the tour, as we did today.
This is what I think is crazy, though. The Butler family, they left that castle in the 20th century. They just left it. And then they sold it to the Irish state in 1967.
Yeah, but guess what? for
the
this
price.
the symbolic price of £50.
That's it, just £50. So you have this amazing castle with all of this history, and they just left it. They left it empty.
Well, because by the time
unfortunately,
it had seen better days and
Yes.
a lot, and so now it's maintained as one of Ireland's most visited historic properties. But in the video they really show us the restoration effort was quite monumental to bring it back to what it is.
So they actually, I think it was during the 60s, they auctioned off all the furniture. Like everything that was in the house got auctioned off. And that's, I think it was actually earlier than the 60s. But they just, they emptied it all out. And so the restoration was able to occur, and then they brought a lot of pieces back. And most of the pieces would be donated, or family members felt that, an earlier family member had purchased it at the auction, but they really wanted it back in the castle where it belonged. So it's neat to see some
Is that
of
what
that.
that guide told you? Yeah.
Yeah. It was neat to see that some of the pieces, the original pieces, were back where they belonged in the house.
It was quite something. We did go through that house, that castle, and it was really quite dramatic.
It was. Now, the very front of that castle is actually the formal terraces and the rose garden. And that's what they're basically known for, is that formal terrace and the roses that they keep there in that front garden.
Yeah, it's pretty. It
really
nice.
is. It's a formal terrace garden.
It features traditional roses and herbaceous plantings. It reflects that Victorian love of colorful bedding displays and carefully maintained ornamental spaces.
Yes. And in the back of it, where you come in as a visitor, that's more of that kind of a parkland.
Grand park, yeah.
Yeah.
Parkland.
Very flat. I was kind of amazed at how long and flat the vista was back, but it's all just well-kept grassland. And the people there of Kilkenny get to go and enjoy it as a park.
Yeah, they take lawn rolling, and I mean rolling out of
Flat
to a whole new level. It is like perfect. We saw this several times in Ireland, some of these formal gardens. I mean, they're like putting greens, and this was a massive, Central Park style area, massive, and people are having picnics and enjoying themselves and playing and carrying on. But it is really cool. Lots of mature. Again, everywhere you look, the maturity of these trees just blows your mind.
Well, I mean, the oaks and the horse chestnuts and the beech trees, they're huge.
Mm-hmm. And you got the views of the River Nore. But it's a lovely place, great place to visit, and I definitely would recommend it for anybody.
So it's an excellent example of how a historic estate evolves over time. So when you look at it starting from that wooden structure to what it is to now.
Yeah, that's kind of that evolution is really interesting.
It really is. So it's not just a single period. It represents so many different periods throughout history.
So you start with that medieval period. You have the defensive castle. Mm-hmm. You got the strategic river location, which pretty much almost all the places we went to were kind of like that.
Yes.
Controlled views for protection. And then by the 18th century, that's when you started seeing the estate improvement, the family coming there spending money on it, creating those parklands, and then bringing that romantic landscape design of those parklands and that kind of feel into it.
Well, then you move into that Victorian period, and that's when they started putting in those ornamental gardens, the formal terrace. They did have an exotic plant collection, and really worked on that Gothic revival architecture.
Yeah, that one stairwell we saw was really neat.
Oh my gosh, it was amazing.
Oh, it was spectacular. And then, of course, the modern era is when they started doing the historic preservation. Now it's a public garden. It's open to everybody, which is great, and provides recreation and cultural landscape for everybody to see and enjoy.
Mm-hmm. So one of the greatest lessons, I think, from the Kilkenny Castle is that relationship between the architecture, the history, the landscape. The gardens don't compete with the castle. It frames it with that sweeping lawn and those mature trees. And of course, everywhere in Ireland has the stone walls. But then the river views
More on that to come. I said more on that to come soon.
Oh, gosh,
We got a whole segment about that, too.
Yes. But today the castle and its grounds stand as one of Ireland's finest examples of that living history and landscape, that place where that medieval fortification turns into that aristocratic estate design, and that Victorian horticulture with all that kind of modern garden comes together, and just one remarkable setting.
So for those of you that don't care about beer, sorry to have two beer segments, gardening with the gardeners. But after Kilkenny Castle, we're there in Kilkenny, which is a cool city in itself. I wish we'd spent more time there. We had lunch and got to walk around a little bit, but it was really neat. But we went to Smithwick's, and it's Smithwick's, but the interesting thing we learned in the Irish dialect, they don't really say the TH. They pronounce it like a
D.
Like a D. So it's Smithwick's or Smith or just Smithwick's.
And there's no W.
No W at all, yeah. So you say it's Smithwick's, and you sound like you know what you're talking about instead.
Yeah, it's SMIDICK.
But it was even older than Guinness. This brewery. The story of Smithwick's begins in 1710.
Well, it kind of begins before that.
Because
it was those the monks.
Yeah.
That were actually brewing beer because it was cleaner or safer to drink than the water at that time.
Yeah, the St. Francis Abbey, Franciscan monastery, founded it in 13th century.
13th century.
Yeah. But like you're saying, the location was ideal. It had clean water from the River Nore, and then the monks in all these areas throughout Europe and Ireland and England they had this tradition of brewing associated with a monastic community that really, like you said, helped. I mean, this is, some would say, oh, they wanted a bunch of beer. Really, it was a necessity for life, because sometimes the water was not good to drink, and so this would be a clean way to process the water.
Well, sanitation wasn't at its height back in the 13th century, so you really never knew what was going to be in the water. Or what was going to be in upstream, floating down the water. So that's why they really had to be careful with drinking water, with diseases and just sanitation, I guess. So really, in that 13th century, the monks learned that if they could provide a clean drinking source, or one that was safe, that would kind of open the door to the general public, so they could kind of use that as a talking point to get their message across to more people.
So the monks, throughout medieval Europe, they're skilled brewers, and they were producing the beer, like we said, as a safe alternative to contaminated water, but also providing nourishment during fasting periods. So it gives you something, you may not be eating, but you could be fasting and still be drinking the beer and getting some nourishment from it. Like we talked about, that John Smithwick is really the guy that kind of took what the monks had already created on site and took it to the next level in 1710, I guess. And the Smithwick family developed the brewery into one of Ireland's most respected regional breweries. It's certainly your favorite beer.
Well, I think, really, I like that lighter flavor.
Yeah, and it's a red. It's real pretty for a nice red, a red ale for a redhead. But for more than 300 years, the generations of families have refined this recipe, and it's a nice, easy, drinkable beer. It's survived through all kinds of things, obviously, and kept going. So Ireland, like Kentucky, has got limestone. It's got good soil, good
great
water.
Soil, yes.
And so all these great breweries, distilleries, Irish whiskeys, just like us in Kentucky bourbon. I mean, it's really kind of the foundation. So there's all these great agricultural elements that you obviously can make these wonderful beverages. So there's a rich history there. Smithwick's continues it. We went on that tour. It's a much smaller tour than Guinness.
Oh, yes, much smaller.
But I think we actually enjoyed it more. It was really hands-on. We were lucky it was just us and another couple. I don't know how we lucked out so much on this trip with very few lines or anything else. And it was cool. It was very well done, and a neat, interesting family history. One, make the connection between Kilkenny Castle and Smithwick's. You said the woman.
So, the Butler family that had that Kilkenny Castle. One of the Smithwicks was able to marry one of the Butlers. And so, unfortunately, I believe when he passed away, she was able to run the brewery, which was very unusual in that Victorian time to have a female
Oh, yeah.
kind of carrying the reins. So It was really neat. And they did talk about her a little bit during the tour and gave her some credit. But they said what an amazing, role she played.
Mm-hmm.
Really, that kind of ended our time in Kilkenny. That was a really fun first, section of our trip. We really, really liked that Kilkenny area, had a great time, and look forward to sharing more of our Irish vacation and gardens on our next episode.
Hopefully people enjoy this different track for us and doesn't bore people of our travel log.
But I think our next trip is on our way to Galway. So that was a fantastic first trip. First stop.
Thank you for listening to Gardening with the Gardeners. We'll catch you next time.
Hey, and if you do like what we have to say and want to hear more, please drop a rating or a review. If you have a question about gardening, landscape, or anything horticulturally related, you can drop us an email at gwtg, and that's Gardening with the Gardeners.
Thank you for listening to Gardening with the Gardeners. Please subscribe or follow to get new episode updates, and please help us get the word out of our new podcast by dropping a rating and review. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Bye.